Hey everybody, it's Paul from Alexander Knife Sharpener Laser Engraving. Got a video coming out today that's going to show this jig right here that I made myself. I made this because I have never been a huge fan of the Tormek small knife jig, where you have to put that jig, where you basically are putting a jig into a jig. So the small knife jig gets attached to one of your regular jigs. And to me, I always thought it was really awkward, and I never understood why Tormek just didn't make a small knife jig, because it will work just fantastic with a small knife jig. So years ago, I built my own, and I built this particular jig right here out of aluminum with a drill stop and this clamp. And then I got a lot of people asking me like, hey, would I sell this part? And this part wasn't the problem, but what happened was the war in Ukraine broke out, and this part was coming from the Ukraine, and you couldn't get it. So I really just didn't talk about it much, didn't bring it up, didn't show it. And the other thing was, I actually had a bunch of these, and I couldn't find them. I moved, and they somewhere got misplaced in the move. This part right here, really easy to get. But I said, you know what? Here we are a couple years later, and my buddy Baz over in Australia just shipped me a jig that he designed himself and was 3D printed, and that should be getting here any day. And I'm pretty excited to see what it is that he designed. Now his is like a big giant full-size type of jig, but when I saw what he did, I got a little inspired, and I said, you know what? When I show this video, everybody's going to ask about this jig again. This part is available. Now, I'll warn you, it's not cheap. It comes from Gritomatic, and it's about 50 bucks. It's a part that was originally designed for the Work Sharp Precision Elite, the very original first one that had a lot of plastic parts in it. And I saw it, and I said, you know what? I bet that would make a fantastic jig, and that's how this jig came about. Well, I'm going to show you what I just did for you. We're going to use it to see if it works, because this is going to be its first test. All right, I'm taking my jig apart, and I said, you know what? I see no reason why I can't 3D print a part for this jig. So I took the kind of basic specifications that I liked about this jig here, and I set about making a printable part. And you'll see here, I measured everything out, so it not only has the screw threads, but it slides in and centers itself with a square PLA nut, or whatever, you can print it out of whatever material you want. You don't have to use PLA. If you want to use something stronger, you probably can. This is just regular old PLA right here. Now, I use the square nut for a reason, because the nice thing is it's just the right size that you don't even need anything. You can come in here and it will lock right in there. I gave it just enough clearance so that we can now start tightening this. And I probably could shorten those threads a little bit. It might be a little bit longer than they needed to be, but that's fine. Well, watch this. Boom. Centered itself. And now we have a beautiful handle for this little jig. All right, let's give it a shot. I'm pretty excited about this. All right, so here we go. So I'm going to do a Swiss Army knife, pretty much the same thing. This came in and it needed some sharpening. And the one reason I always love this jig is because when I build it, let's see if this one has one. This one may not have. Oh, no, it does have it. It was the one jig that the small knife I could fit on even that little small blade, just like that, and get that on there. So I can not only sharpen this tiny blade, but it worked even on these little tiny pocket knife jigs. And I'll show you this right here. So here we go. Just going to get my Allen key out, because that's what this uses to tighten down. So this clamp uses a little number 3 Allen key. And same principle here as I always use on all my other jigs. You want to get that angle from the heel to the tip. If there was a straight line going from those two, you want that same kind of an angle. You can see someone did a lot more sharpening here on the rear on this knife. And we're just going to have to lower this significantly. Now, the one thing with this, you cannot use the Tormek angle setter. I don't believe it has enough reach for this, but I don't know. I'm not sure if I made this jig long enough. Yeah, it's kind of... Now, that's probably something I could do. I probably could print this just a tiny bit longer, and that might be able to set the protrusion. It is almost there. Almost there. Maybe I'll consider that. Maybe we'll make a slightly longer version. Anyway, usually when I do these little tiny pen knives, what I do is I just do the Sharpie method. So I usually just come in here and I just look for making sure that I am getting a full nice grind across that bevel. That's a tiny bit low. I'm going to come up a few turns here. Just a little. That looks perfect. So we're going to stop right there. And I'll probably only go to 600 grit on here. I probably won't go to 12. But here we go. Let's see if this works. It's interesting. The one thing I'm not used to, it's you know, because of it being PLA, which is real strong, but it is light. It's interesting. It's like almost holding nothing. Yeah, look at that. Let me show you guys. Almost all our Sharpies gone. We got a very nice, perfect little bevel going there. So yeah, after doing this, I really just never understood why Tormek just didn't make a small knife jig. So I made my own. And now I'm going to share it with y'all. Yeah, that feels good. These are really easy to sharpen on Tormek machines. I'm just hitting back here in the heel. Whoever had sharpened this before really went at that heel section a lot. And the bevel was extremely uneven back there. So I'm just taking a little more metal off there just to even that bevel out. This side looks perfect over here. Gonna do a couple more strokes on this side, and then we'll just jump right to that 600 grit stone. All right, good enough. All right, jumping the machine over. This is 600. All right, good enough. This just needs to be stropped. I'm in the middle of my pre-Thanksgiving rush, so it's been really busy. And trying to get stuff for you guys to see. And I've been having a lot of laser engraving going on too. Let me show you the results there. Okay, now I'm just gonna remove it. I'll strop this, and then I'm gonna do I'll show you guys the little one too. So we're going to do that little tiny knife that's on here. And that was one of the things I've always loved about this jig, is that it can handle doing a super tiny little knife. Whoo! Feels sharp. Now I got to clean off that. The person's been opening a lot of packages with that smaller knife. There. Yeah, push cutting. Beautiful. Let's do the. Oh, this is a cool one too. I only saw these this year. They're now making Swiss Army knives where the blade can be locked with this little thing here. You basically just pull it out, and now that blade's locked. It's not the greatest lock in the world, but it definitely locks it to some extent. I guess it gives it a little less of a chance of closing on you, and then when you want to close it, you just push it in. So on this one, you can see it's all dirty. It's covered with gunk from tape. So they've been using this one clearly to open a lot of packages. So for that, I'm going to grab my favorite stuff for getting tape off and glue, and that's Goof Off Adhesive and Gunk Remover. This stuff is the bomb. It's kind of a gel, and you just put a little bit on here. Don't need much. Literally, I put a couple drops on. Let that sit a few minutes. Sometimes it's really quick, but just, yeah, let it sit a little bit. Sometimes I'll brush it a little, but it will break up all that gunky glue and tape and helps get all that stuff off. Yeah, that looks much better. Okay, got all the glue off. We don't have the best lighting over here this morning. Maybe it would help if I turned my filming lights on. I could use one more set of fluorescents in here right over the Tormek area, but this is what I'll do a lot of times. I'll just I'll bounce it off the ceiling when I need to, and that gives me a nice soft light to work under when I'm sharpening on the Tormek machines. And probably give us a much better view of this now. There we go. Now we can see. All right, got my jig out, and same thing here. All right, so let's get this mounted. I'm going to come back here right about the middle and start that, and then I'm going to loosen this front a bit. Get that angle that I like from the tip to the heel. Just going to be a slight angle here. We don't got to go crazy. That looks pretty good to me. The nice thing about this clamp is it's so thin and long is that I can do these little teeny tiny blades without it hitting. And that's the key to this, I think, why this clamp has been so successful. I got a little chain here I got to look out for. I'm going to shut this other blade now. Okay, let's do this small blade now. And same thing here. We're just going to go for the good old Sharpie trick. We're not going to bother with any Tormek angle setter. It's not quite big enough for this particular jig. Now, if I made it maybe a ½ inch or an inch longer, it would probably be big enough to use the angle setter. I think we're going to be good here. Yeah. And since it's pretty much the same size blade as the last one, you'll see here that we're practically spot on. See my little grind mark right there? That's perfect. All the way down to that apex. That's looking good. So we don't need to do anything else there. We can work right with that. Here we go. I'm going to show you how. Look at this beautifully ground, tiny little bevel. Look at that. It's perfect. Just perfect. Love it. All right, here we go again. Other side. Remember, we're pulling the knife forward. We're not lifting the heel up, but we're going out that direction towards the tip. And I feel a good burr, and again, another perfect, absolutely perfect little bevel on there. All right, simple enough. 600 grit. Moving my hand out of the way so hopefully you guys can see since I didn't move the camera. And since this one seems to be their favorite blade, and sometimes it's nice to have two different blades on one knife, like a pocket knife, why don't we go to 1200 for a few strokes on the small blade here. Make this one close to razor sharp. My little ALX sharpened small knife jig. And this little teeny tiny small knife on this Swiss Army knife. Okay, let's do the other side. This is my oldest machine. It's a little bit noisier than my other machines. Yeah, that looks beautiful. I'll show you the finish here. A tiny bit of isopropyl alcohol just to get any black Sharpie on there off. Looks like we got all of it. But look at that beautiful new bevel, even on this pretty heavily used Swiss Army knife. So a little bit of, not sure if it was compound or something up there. All right, let's do a cut test. Yeah, push cutting real nice. Beautiful. All right, guys, there you go. That is the small knife jig that I built. And I'm going to share that file with you. I don't get anything for, there's no affiliate stuff or links or anything for the clamp. And that's going to be your most expensive part of this thing. That clamp is around $50 for just the clamp. But I am going to make the handle that I made for it totally free. If you have a 3D printer, you can print it yourself. For those of you that don't have a 3D printer, I will give some consideration to making them and making them available. Like I did with the skins, maybe I'll make these available. I don't know. I'll have to think about it. But for now, it's going to be something that you can just definitely go and print yourself. I would caveat this too, because I've had a few people that have been upset when if I said like, hey, I'm not going to sell this, or I'm not going to, when I've put something out for free, but they want to just buy it. And it's like, I'm not looking to, market parts, guys. I am crazy busy. I like making solutions that work for me, but I'm not always, it's not something I'm looking to necessarily profit off of. So I'm sorry if you, get upset because, well, why doesn't he just sell it? Why isn't he selling it to me? What I would say is consider getting a 3D printer, all right, would be the one thing. If not, if you check in your area or ask around neighbors and friends, somebody probably has a 3D printer and can make the part for you. And there are people that have, print farms, and there's also online, things where you can get something 3D printed. And 3D printers aren't crazy expensive, okay? Like, I have two, and yes, the top one was expensive. This one up here was around $1,000, but the one down there, this is $350. I got it on Amazon Prime Day, and you have Black Friday coming, and that's a Flash Forge Adventurer 5M Pro. It's been fantastic. It would have no problem making this part whatsoever. And if you are into, just a lot of this kind of stuff, I think many of you would be amazed at how many things you'll see that are free. And that's one thing I love about the 3D printing community is the overwhelming majority of this stuff, people give their stuff away for free. It's only if they're having to print it for somebody. Now, there are some guys that, they only sell their designs, and some won't license them for free. But when I say like overwhelming majority, there's very few 3D printed things that I even consider buying anymore because I can almost find everything I need or make it myself. So, hope you guys like this video. and I will make this part available. I think this might be the first one that I put on like Makerspace or one of those out there, and we'll go from there. All right, so I'll talk to you soon. Hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great day, y'all.